Hey guys, it's Kelsey and I'm back with another scrapbooking process video, and this is another one with my coffee themed homemade kit for how to kill a kit with style. I really wanted to dig into some of the more difficult paper I have in this kit, one of which being this swan paper that was in the leftovers from the Cosmopolitan paper pack that I had. So I'm just going to try to use it in a couple layers. I'm really going for the color of the swans to kind of add to the feel of the page, even though it's a very random icon that has nothing to do with the actual page itself. I feel like Shamel would be proud. So I'm going to go ahead and ink everything in my ground espresso distress oxide. That's the ink I'm really trying to use a lot this month, just because the color and the name of that ink I feel like is perfect for the coffee theme. So I'm going to quickly ink the outside of this. I'm going to gut the middle section, and then the more simplistic Prima Marketing black and white paper will be the bulk of the background. But I really wanted to dive into the swan paper and get it used early on in the month so it didn't cause me issues later on. I think it turns out really sweet. These are photos of Billy when he was 3 months old, and we were riding the campus bus at the University of Georgia. And it always kind of amazed me how easily he just took all these things in stride. And now, me just thinking about getting another dog and having to start training from the ground up type of thing, I just think of like how well Billy did just taking on all these different things that some dogs might be scared of or uncomfortable with. I just remember the first time on the bus, he was just like, yeah, this is normal, this is fine. So there's a couple pictures here. When he was really little, I would sit him up on, there's kind of this area where you could rest your bags and stuff at the beginning of the bus. And I would just sit him up there with my backpack because he was so little. I didn't really want him on the ground of the moving bus. And if you've ever been on the UGA buses, I'm sure this is true in a lot of places, but you get thrown around in these buses and they can get quite full. So especially when he was little, I wanted him to have this little safe space where he's kind of up and out of the way. But you can see in the other picture, once I finally get them matted and flipped back over, he's just sitting up there right where the bus driver sits. He's being such a little good boy. So I wanted to document this as part of our college experience. A lot of it this year was focusing on Billy and his training. So this was one of the things we had to kind of I don't know, get them used to. So I'm going to matte both of these in white. I also inked those. I'm doing a second matte in black. And I feel like I did ink the black, although you can't really tell. It just made me feel better to ink it as well. But I kind of like having that black and white matte around both of the photos. I trimmed them both down to 4x4s. And I'm planning on them just slightly overlapping and building some layers around them. Definitely digging into my kit and trying to use some of the random things. I had a scrap of a wood grain tag I had made for another layout a long time ago and never ended up using it, so I'll get that used up on here. And here you can kind of see where that black paper covers a lot of the swan. I think having the swan around the edge, I don't know, like the swans don't go with this theme, but for some reason I really like it. But I definitely want to pull in this other scrap that I gutted from that swan paper into another layer just because we're trying to get it used up. I pulled in a couple other scraps of some black and white patterns, some vellum bits. I was really determined to use this coffee filter on this layout, and it's been in my stash for a while. I forget why I initially brought those coffee filters up to the scrap room, but I thought I could kind of pleat them in a way so it looked like a nice detail, and it just was not working. So I ended up not using them. I am hoping I can get at least one coffee filter used up at some point this month. I really wanted to be on this page, but as you can see, I just struggle with this. I try folding it back in its original folded look. It wasn't working. I tried using my scoreboard to create the pleats. It wasn't working. So then I was like, well, maybe if I just crumple it up and make it distress, it'll be fine without having the folds. And that didn't work. You can see I end up trying to distress it a little bit with the ink color, and nothing I do makes it work. So you'll see me struggle with this for a while. I decided to leave it in just because this happens sometimes when you scrapbook. And this was one of the times I was just determined to use this. I went through so many different methods of trying to use it, and it just ended up not working. So um, I was planning on this being a main layer behind the photos and then having some layers coming out from there, but I really liked the color that it added. This brown color really plays off of Billy's color. He also has his yellow jacket, so I remembered I ended up adding in the scraps of my You and Me page kit that I did for the live at the end of last month. I ended up throwing the leftovers into this kit, and one of the things that was left over were these little yellow photo corners, and I thought the color matched the coffee filter really well. So I was like, okay, well, I'll use the coffee filter and I'll get these photo corners used up, which is great. And I did get the photo corners used up, but then I ended up taking off the coffee filter that coordinated with them. But I think it still turns out okay because it pulls in the yellow from the photos. None of the other products I'm really using have that yellow, but I kind of feel like because the photo corners are on each corner, and the photos have that color in them in the center of the page, I feel like it still goes. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down all of these photo corners. I'm very happy I got those used up because if you were there for my live, I was really determined to use these photo corners and then I ended up not using them. So they are used now and I feel good about getting them used up. I feel like I had my redemption. So get those used up. I'm also really determined to use another one of those plastic coffee cup letterboard pieces that were kind of the base for this collection from my stash. So I'm hoping I can get the big one that you see there to the right used up. And then I really wanted to pull in one of the other pieces. You'll see me try to pull in like some of the other hearts that were in the letterboard kit. But on this page, I end up actually just having this coffee cup. And you will see why as we get farther along when I get to embellishment, because it just worked out better with the other things I had to use. I am inking all these photo corners too, which is why this is taking so long, but I think I'm almost done. Really happy I'm getting that wood grain tag used up because that was another thing from an old page I never used, and now I'm trying to pull in another layering element since this page has more of that soft gold metallic versus the rose gold of some of the other pages I've had this month. I decided to lean into it with this vellum. This is just clear vellum with that really soft gold polka dot on it. I thought it was a really sweet touch that helped tie in the softer gold elements that are on that little coffee cup. And I just think the gold with Billy, since he's a golden retriever and has that golden fur, I just think it works. So I decided that would be a layer right behind my mats. And I'm inking that as well. I'm trying really hard to remember to ink everything. And then you can also see I pulled in a scrap of a black and white heart print that I'm planning on being a horizontal layer. So this is kind of the base of my layering. I kind of started with my photos this time and then built backwards, whereas a lot of times I get my big paper layers down and then worry about photos afterwards. This was kind of opposite, which is a fun way to work. But I'm inking this as well. Very happy I got this scrap used up too. A lot of this kit is scraps and stuff that has been in my stash forever, which is why I'm just so excited to be using it this month because it's my first homemade kit that I've ever used. I do pull out this little craft kit to trim the backs of those letterboard prongs off. I'm just going to go ahead and do it to all of them that are in my kit for this month. That way they're ready to be glued down in the future. I got that little kit. Me and my sister had a girls' craft night where we made homemade wreaths. This was for Halloween. We made little they're really cute. I should put a picture at some point in here. They're in my craft room. If I ever do another scrap room tour, you'll see them. But really sweet little homemade wreaths with florals and stuff. So I bought that little wire tool kit to add some different chain dangly elements to it. And I really used those pieces, those tools for scrapbooking. So I'm glad they're coming in handy in my scrap room too. But this is where I decide I want to add the gutted section of that swan paper. I really want that tied into the base layers and not just be that outside element, because I feel like if it was just a frame around the page, it really wouldn't make sense and it would be weird. but for some reason adding this weird paper to more places makes it seem like it belongs. So I'm adding the swan paper. You saw me take off the coffee filter finally. I just gave up on it. But I also had a black frame left over from that You and Me page kit that I used for the live. So I'm going to use that just as a frame, not for matting anything. Just to add a different kind of element. It adds a really cool layer without covering anything up. And it adds a black layer into my photo area without being too heavy. So I'm just trying to glue everything down without shifting everything too much. And then of course the parts I did glue down I forgot to ink beforehand, so I'm trying to do that now before I glue everything together. But I'm really liking how this looks. As soon as I finally gave up on the coffee filter, I was like, okay, now this makes a lot more sense. And I felt like I could continue. So inking this little frame, I'm going to cut that into 2 sections and have them coming out of the top and bottom of the photo. So it looks more like a square frame instead of this 4x6 frame. And again, I just love how frames look when you use them like this. I just think it's such a cool layering element. I don't have a lot of frames in my stash, so when I do, I love to use them like this. But I think that's such a cool touch. I love that. And it helps break up some of that swan print in the upper left-hand corner, so it's just not a block of swans. I just like that one black corner that kind of runs through it. So I'm going to get the lower piece down, and then I think I'm almost ready to glue down all of these layers, but there's so much of this black paper covered, and I love how versatile this black and white paper will be throughout this month. So I just had to gut the section that's going to be covered because it's quite a big chunk of paper that's covered. So before I glue down these other layers, I will end up going back and gutting. I toyed around with playing with a couple other scraps. I just got really excited that I was using so many old scraps from my stash. I wanted to use more, but it threw off the balance I had created. I kind of really like the layers I already have at this point. So now I'm thinking more towards embellishment. So I think I'm just playing around with a couple elements. I thought about playing with that tassel, but even though I do have a couple brown elements on this page, I just thought that tassel was too far left. But I did pull in these little pink vellum stars. I already used the white one that I had in this kit on a previous page, but I have 2 of these pink ones that I think look really sweet with this swan paper. I like that pop of pink. So I'm trying to figure out how to use them, and I'm being really stubborn again about wanting to use one of those plastic hearts that came in the coffee cup letterboard pack. But once I pull out these 2 pink vellum stars, I decide, okay, I can kind of create a visual triangle with my embellishment if I use the coffee cup to the right, and then I just have one of these vellum stars in the other 2 areas and just give up on using the heart because the heart was kind of drawing my attention too much. I really want the star on this page to be the really cute coffee cup from that kit, so I end up taking the heart off and just playing with the vellum stars instead. And I like it a lot better once I do that. I just feel like all these elements are too much the same size and they were competing, so I needed to edit a little bit. But I like what I just did here, and then I just wanted another little layer, so I'm going to add a doily. I'm just going to tuck that behind the tag. I think this also helps break up more of the swan paper, but it gives you a little interest behind that frame and just that lacy detail I love. So a little bit more white. And then I will also thread that wood grain tag with some of that fuzzy white trim that I've been using this month. So I still have to do that. But I think I finally decided to take the heart off. I thought about what other embellishment I might want to use, but everything I thought about adding just competed with what I already had. So I decided to keep the embellishment simple since all of them are kind of cool details between the stars and the cup, and just leave it at that. So I went ahead and threaded the tag. I don't know if I glue down the layers yet or not. I do use my Nuvo glue to glue down the vellum. I love this glue for gluing down translucent or transparent things because it dries clear. So this was perfect for the vellum. Even now as I'm looking at the page doing my voiceover, they're laying perfectly flat, very secure, and you cannot see the glue through them, and there's no glue seeping out of the edges. So that's why I really love the Nuvo glue. But as you can see, for this plastic cup, I used my Tombow Mono Multi because that glue is super sticky, super strong. for the non-papery bits that I need to glue down. So I knew for the plastic that would be a better glue to use. But here I'm finally gutting the black. I have to save this chunk for another page. I know that black will come in handy because I have a lot of really weird, shiny printed pattern paper this month. It's really fun for me to use, but I just feel like I'm going to need this more toned down paper in my layers further down the month. So definitely saving that chunk. I will back this with a scrap piece of black, but this just makes me happy saving that piece because I definitely didn't want to waste it. So now my layers are getting glued down, and then I need to secure the back so I don't have that whole situation with all those holes. And this just helps everything be more stable and stuck together. So getting that down and trying to be strategic by how I lay my glue to get the most coverage with the least amount of glue. So that technique seems to kind of work. And now I'm officially gluing down the coffee cup. And I think I'm almost done. I do want a title. I do just want to note that we are on the bus, or mention bus rider, that kind of thing. So I'm bringing in these really sweet little puffy alphas from Felicity Jane. I'm just going to say bus rider down by the coffee cup directly on the photo. That's just going to serve as my title. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Billy's a puppy. We're on the bus. He's in his guide dog coat. And then there are a lot of numbers on the sheet as well. So I will add the date on top of the other photo, just so I have that puffy white alpha texture in multiple spots. Well, 2 spots, and one will have my title, the other will have the date, and I just love how that kind of balances the page out. I do want to do a finishing touch. I thought about using those puffy hearts to the left there, but all of those pinks, even though I have like 4 different pinks to choose from, none of them were the same shade as the swan paper. So I kind of looked to my Nuvo drops and realized that the bubblegum color is like the perfect pink for this page. I think I cut out most of it, but I had to do surgery on the top of that Nuvo bottle to get it unclogged because haven't used it in so long. But I got the Nuvo drops on, and that was my finishing touch. So here are the close-ups. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.